Hi, my name's Tim Troyer, and I'm the founder of The Reckoning International. And The Reckoning is very simply a faith-based development organization that helps poor people in the developing world. We help them to develop their own gifts and talents. We help them to develop their own solutions to how do they make a livelihood? How do they make a living? How do they make a life? And that's basically what we do. If I had to tell you when The Reckoning started, I would say that it started many years ago, really in my heart as a little boy. My parents were linguists, and they were working in Asia, so that's my earliest memories are growing up living in a tribal group, a very primitive tribe in the highlands of the Philippines, and then also of living in Nepal. I had a lot of experiences as a young boy, seeing people whose lives were kind of trapped in poverty, that poverty was generational for them, and that they needed real solutions. And kind of what I saw was, especially from a faith perspective, I saw kind of two things that were being offered. I saw proclamation, which is preaching. So, people went and they preached and they told them about God and stuff like that, which that's wonderful. But I looked at that and I said, what's the use of telling people about, going to heaven someday if they're starving right now? And then the second thing I saw was a lot of relief work where people were just handing out food. And even as a little boy, I looked at that, and probably like a lot of you, I thought, if you give people food today, you have to show up and give them food tomorrow. And I just knew there's gotta be somehow a better way, a way that, is more sustainable, and also that doesn't make people who are receiving feel like it's all charity. There needs to be some equality. Sometimes it's easy to give to people. It's harder to be equals with them, to give them justice. An early memory I had that really did spark this desire in my life to make a difference was, I guess I was about 6 or 7 years old. I was standing in a marketplace in Kathmandu, Nepal. And at that time, Nepal was a Hindu kingdom. They venerated, cows. They worshiped cows, and so these cows were walking, kind of roaming the market, and people would feed them. And I saw along the side of the road this cow had, there's no delicate way to say it, had pooped or just crapped in the road, and there was this woman, and her hair was disheveled, and she was kind of clothed in rags, and she had these two little girls with her, and both of them, you could tell, were in kind of the early stages of malnutrition. Their bellies were starting to be distended, and their hair was kind of turning, a different color as a result of malnutrition, and they were crying. And their mother was down on her knees in the street, and she had a tin can, and she was bending over, kneeling down rather, and picking through this cow manure and picking out undigested kernels of corn and putting them in this tin can. And I remember being horrified. I remember thinking that, my mom, if I was ever hungry and I just went to her and said, "Mom, I'm hungry, I need something to eat," my mom always had food to give me. And yet these children were crying, and this woman, she wasn't thinking about her dignity, she wasn't thinking about what she looked like. She was at a level of desperation where people were passing her by, some were not even noticing her, and kind of ignored, and she was just picking through this awful mess so that she could have some food to feed her kids. And something inside me said, this is so unjust, someone needs to do something. And in my heart, at the time, I knew there's gotta be a way to help people in this desperate level of poverty to make a living, to have dignity, to, just something simple like this woman to be able to comb her hair, for her to be able to feed her children. There's poverty in the developed world, certainly. There's homelessness around us, there's poverty. But I've yet to see in the Western world a mother picking through cow crap to find something for her children to eat. Fast forward in the late 90s, I was doing some projects. I'd done a lot of business training with an organization called Lared Business Network, and just continued to see this great need for development, economic development, social development in countries. And so we were working at the time in Nepal. I'd gone back there after, many years being there as a kid. And working with my Nepali partner, Gopal, I found out that there was about 150,000, 140,000 or so tribal people, some of the poorest of the poor, who are trapped in a slavery system in Nepal called the Kamaya system. And Gopal, giving us leadership, helped us to redeem. We did a project where we bought 15 people out of slavery. We helped them to have little pieces of land to work and to support themselves. And we learned a lot of lessons from that. And then when that was successful, we did another redemption project where we bought 150 people out of slavery. And this got too big to just be some simple projects I was doing with friends. And that's when we started a structure. We said, we need this to be a 501c3 organization, an NGO. So we started it, we call it The Reckoning. It's kind of a strange name, but we love it. It comes from the parable of the talents. Parable is just a story that Jesus told to teach a lesson. And in the parable of the talents, a landowner gave resource to his servants and said, I'll be back. And I want to see what you do to multiply these talents. And I love in the Old King James, it says, when he came back, he reckoneth with his servants. And I didn't think the Reckoneth would be a good name. So we called it The Reckoning. And it just means that we've got these gifts and talents, we're accountable for them, and we can use them to sustain and make a living and make a life. So that's what The Reckoning is all about, and that's what we're after. Our mission's just very simple: mobilize people and resources to transform the lives of families living in poverty.